Hi, Shirley and Judy, if you've got Judy with you as well. We're just waiting for a couple of minutes for a couple more people to jump on and then we'll get started. Oh, you've got a room full there. Just going to stop sharing my screen for a second. Sorry, everybody, but it is not working for me to move along on my slides.
Hello, Jackie. Christopher.
All right, we will make a start. So just a reminder, and actually, Shirley, we'll get you for now to go camera off if that's okay. Sometimes people that don't have a strong internet signal struggle if we keep cameras on. So we'll try and keep cameras off to a minimum. Thanks for taking the time out of everyone's day today to join us for the webinar. We have got our webinar going for 2 hours. We're not sure if it will take that long today, but we hope you can stick around. I'm actually still having trouble going through my presentation, so sorry to not share again. See how I go this time. Can I get a thumbs up, Bree or Liz, that you can see my presentation?
Hey, Jackie, it's Mark. We can see the first slide of the PowerPoint.
Perfect. And are you okay? Am I moving through?
No, it's still on the first slide.
Okay. I'm not sure why it's not sharing properly for me today. Sorry, all. Give me a second. The old-fashioned way, if it will. No, it won't. I've shared the slideshow with Bree and Liz. I might have to get you to control it if that's okay, because mine does not want to share. And if you can get that up while I read the acknowledgement of country, that would be great. So Lifesaving Victoria respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners of the land and waterways in which we swim, explore, play, meet and live. We pay our respects to elders past and present and celebrate the stories, culture and traditions of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples of all communities who also work and live on these lands. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where we work at Port Melbourne and also where I'm working from today at home, the Bunurong people of the Southeastern Kulin Nation, and pay respects to their elders past and present. All right, we will move along. Thank you. Whoever's controlling the slides for me now, looks great. So today we have got, well, we've got a lot of people online who can help out. Speaking today, we've got Chris Clark, who's the Curriculum Manager for Health and Physical Education from the Victorian Curriculum and Assessment Authority. We've got Alison Porter online, who's our statewide swimming coordinator for the Department of Education. We've got Sophie Rowland as the WinSwim coordinator at Wynactive, and Mark Belitho will be doing a quick presentation. He's our manager for education programs at Lifesaving Victoria. We'll jump along a slide, please. We've also got a lot of LSV staff who won't specifically be presenting. Can I just get, if someone's got their microphone and camera on, can you please turn it off? while we've Claire and Tony we've got online, they won't be specifically presenting, but are available for any questions today. So Claire's from our Aquatic Industry Services team and Tony's from our public training team. Claire and Tony, you do work with a lot of people across the industry, so I'm going to be really embarrassing. Ask you to turn your cameras off and give us a quick wave so that when people bump into you in the future, they'll know who you are. Hi, Claire. Tony, are you online as well?
Hi, I'm here.
Hi. So a lot of you may know names of Tony and Claire, but potentially don't see their faces very often. So there they are. We've got Judy and Shirley online too from the Victorian Catholic Education Authority. And Shirley, you've also got someone else in the room as well. Hi, have you got an extra in the room with you?
Yes, we've got Shemaine Thomas.
Shemaine's in there too. Thanks for joining today. So they will also be happy to answer questions throughout the webinar, although not doing a presentation, they're available if anyone's got questions. So we will encourage people throughout just to pop questions into the chat. We've got Liz and Bree monitoring the chat today. So if they'll either answer your questions or we can get one of our LSV staff or one of the staff that are online to help out to answer questions today. So pop your questions in the chat. Also, give us a shout out in the chat. You know how much we love to see who's online and say hello back. So if you're online, jump in the chat, say hello, let us know where you're from. And I can't wait to see later on. I can't see the chat at the moment, but I can't wait to see later on who's joined in and said hi. So we will move on. Thank you to whoever's got the presentation. We'll move on to the next slide. And we've got Chris up first. So we're really lucky to have had Chris join us for a couple of webinars and Think Tank, I think you're at last year for us as well, Chris. It's always really engaging content when you're on and lots of people have questions. So I'll encourage you as Chris is talking to pop questions in the chat and we'll have a look at the end of Chris's presentation and answer any of the questions that Chris hasn't answered throughout the presentation. But Chris, I'll hand over to you and let you do the introduction of yourself and your role at the VCAA.
Thanks, Jackie. It's probably easier if whoever's controlling the slideshow just continues to do it and I'll just prompt. Yeah, thanks. Move it on. Or I can drive it if it's easier. Yeah, no, thank you. So I too pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land. I live and do a fair bit of work and working from today the lands of the Wathaurong people of the Kulin Nation, and certainly pay my respects to elders past, present, and particularly any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people on the call today. Thank you. Next slide. My role as a curriculum manager, and I'd say straight off the bat that I'm a team of one, so my role is exclusively managing the health and physical education curriculum from F or foundation prep to right through to year 12. I have 3 VCE studies under my role as well. But obviously today I'm very much focused on the F to 10 curriculum. Probably the only point that is really relevant is at the bottom of this slide for people out of interest on this call, and it's probably a contextual point that the way in which schools choose to implement the curriculum is a school-based decision and supported by the sectors, and it's great to see that we've got representatives from the Victorian Catholic Education Authority on as well today. So that's the pedagogical piece. So we manage the curriculum and support teachers with interpreting and delivering it, but the actual decisions that are made at a school-based level in the way in which curriculum is implemented is a school-based decision, and that some will say is a weakness, but I very much put that is a strength of the Victorian curriculum, that it provides that flexibility for each individual context and schools and for their cohorts. Thank you. Moving on. And I'll probably get you to jump straight through this one and to the next slide, because I'll talk back to that one. So I guess my presence here today is to particularly talk about the place of swimming and water safety within the revised Victorian Curriculum 2.0. So hopefully by now, everyone that's joining us today is aware that the Victorian curriculum has undergone a revision, and we've delivered that curriculum. That curriculum, and you'll see some screenshots in a moment of our new platform. But that Victorian curriculum is already available for schools to engage and familiarise themselves with. We've just in the last couple of months delivered the first of our webinars introducing the Victorian curriculum, and it'd be great to have people put in the chat if they attended those webinars and actually have engaged with some of that material, because a couple of the really key critical talking points in those webinars relate to swimming and water safety. And probably the last little point on this, because it's the obvious elephant in the room, if you like, about when are schools implementing the revised Victorian curriculum. That is a sector-based decision, but practically, from a practicality point of view, most Victorian students will see the revised Victorian curriculum in 2026. There might be some variances with that. However, most students, it'll be 2026. Jumping on. So this is a screenshot of our revised platform, where we're actually, the Victorian curriculum is at the moment split across 3 different web interfaces. So those of you that are familiar with the current Victorian curriculum will know that the curriculum is in one element of our website, and then all of our resources, including the links to the LSV toolkit and information about swimming and water safety, is in another place. The reason that we now have a brand new platform for Victorian Curriculum 2.0 is primarily because we can house everything in the one place. So already, if you go to our website, you'll be able to see the curriculum, the scope and sequence. You'll be able to see the initial familiarisation material. And then the key part is that our team is working really hard. Our F-10 team is working really hard at the moment to develop the next phase of those professional learning materials, and they are designed around planning documents. So for school leadership right down to faculty level, so health PE faculty level and the other learning areas, down to teacher level, and it'll actually include curriculum area maps, plans, teaching and learning units, and examples. And we, as that starts to roll out, we'll look at ways in which we can embed some examples with swimming and water safety into some of that template information and some of those examples as well. Next slide. So I've already mentioned the timeline, so I'll get you to jump on to the next one as well. Just from a high-level point of view, in terms of looking at the revisions, the structure remains the same. Still a discipline-based approach to learning. So for us, that actually focuses particularly around health and physical education within our current learning area. And interestingly, and I know there's a strong connectivity with swimming and water safety with EAL, and particularly our A to D curriculum, that there's processes occurring at the moment that is looking at the revision of the A to D curriculum. And I can and I know I've spoken a little bit with Liz about this as well. We will be really looking at, particularly early in the new year, when health and physical education gets looked at in relation to the A to D revision. At the moment, it's a focus on maths and English particularly, but early in the new year, when health PE comes into that A to D curriculum, the work and the substantive work that's been done by LSV in this space in supporting specialist settings, we are going to really look to tap in with that. So I'll get you to jump 2 slides on. Excellent. So as I said, no change to the structure of the health and physical education curriculum, and of most in terms of the overarching structure. The only little interesting point here is you'll notice that in the revised VC2 that we refer to it as, you'll actually note that we have attributed the names health education and physical education to the strand names. So many will be familiar with the strand names. We've actually attributed those terms basically to say what we mean and be really clear to schools and teachers in terms of planning their curriculum with the 2 individual discipline areas, which are connected but have their own discrete knowledge bases as well. So we're obviously focused on the physical education element here. And I make that point because in the current Victorian curriculum, there were some elements. There was an element about outdoor learning that used to sit within health education. We've shifted everything into PE. So everything related to swimming and water safety, whether that's from a practical skills base, so movement skill element, and the water safety element, all sits within the physical education strand. I'll get you to move that on. Many of you will be familiar with the term focus areas. So for those that maybe aren't as familiar with it, focus areas are the context or the lenses in which the health PE curriculum knowledge is to be taught. So from a very, very simplistic point of view, some schools will see these as units of work, but it is a little bit more complex than that. But I'm just using that as a really simple way of describing what the focus areas are. On our web platform and on this slide, we've got a hyperlink in there that links to the document that actually describes each of the focus areas, of which there are 12, 6 that sit in the PE space and 6 that sort of either overlap into the health or have just the health focus. For swimming and water safety, we're focused on fundamental movement skills, challenge and adventure activities, safety and lifelong physical activities. Probably the challenge and adventure activities is a context for those outdoor applications of swimming and water safety. Fundamental movement skills, probably more your traditional pool-based development of swimming skills. Safety being that water safety component, and obviously the lifelong physical activities is just the benefit of being active through swimming particularly. Moving on, I'm going to now just talk you through really quickly the what's actually changed within the elements of the curriculum. If we can just get that moved forward. Thank you. So there's been essentially 2 significant changes to what we've done with swimming and water safety in the Victorian curriculum. But before I talk to those specifically, I'm going to just make this broad overarching statement that all Victorian students from F to 10 are required to be delivered a swimming and water safety program, which includes an in-water component. That has not changed. So the current Victorian curriculum requires all students F to 10 to have an in-water component to complement a water safety component. That is still the case in the Victorian Curriculum 2.0, which at our recent webinar surprised some secondary settings who didn't think that their students needed to have an in-water component. One of the reasons for that is in the current Victorian curriculum, the words aquatic in terms of within our content descriptions didn't exist in levels 7 to 10. However, the students were still required to complete swimming and water safety, both from the mandated perspective of it, but also through those focus areas I was just talking about before. But it was more implied rather than having that explicit documented terminology in the content descriptions. So for a secondary setting, that's the only change we've made, is that we've made it more explicit. So I just want to make that statement off the bat. Now I'll talk a little bit just with some of the nuancing in the curriculum documentation. And as I mentioned before, there's significantly two additions. We've bolstered swimming and water safety focus and exposure in our curriculum. One of the ways in which we've done that is what I just mentioned before, that we now have aquatic written into the movement skill learning sequence. So you can see here, if we go to the next slide, this is foundation to level 4. There's no change there. Just go to the next slide and I'll be able to talk about that change in the next piece. So what you'll now see, this is that same learning sequences we had up before. This is the fundamental movement skills, essentially the in-water component, and our LSV toolkit and the water safety progression, or the swimming progression resource, provides great examples of how this is brought to life. But this movement skills learning sequence, now you can see in the 7, 8 and 9, 10, we've literally and explicitly using the word aquatic settings. That's the change at secondary. And if we go to the next slide, I'll be able to show you what the other broad change is. From F through to 10, we've added the context of aquatic settings to the learning sequence, which refers to outdoor environments, or being active in outdoor environments safely, and looking at it from health and lifelong physical activity benefits. But we've added aquatic settings here to be able to really show that through line of the safety component. So this really would be, in many respects, those other ways in which schools might deliver a water safety component that's not a traditional swimming-based pool component. So this might be open water at a beach. It could be dry land as well. So it's really looking at just making sure that we've just got that further context in there to give it its presence, but also some flexibility for schools. So that's, I'll just get you to jump to the next slide. Probably the only other thing, and this is probably more from a teacher, a health phys ed sense, but there is a little bit of a connection here with our providers, particularly when it comes to assessment. We've invested quite heavily in making stronger connections between the content descriptions, which is what students need to be taught and learnt, and the achievement standards, which is what students are assessed against. Put simply, it's easier to find the link between the two. So what you see in an assessment statement can easily be tracked back to the content description. The last point I will make before just opening up for conversation, and Jackie might want to prompt a few questions, but one of the most common questions that we get, or clarifications that we get, is around the structure of our curriculum, which, other than foundation, which is a 1-level band, the rest of our bands in the curriculum are 2-level bands. When we say levels, they essentially mean years, but we understand that students develop at different rates. But 2-level bands in that level 1 and 2 is a 2-level band. Level 3 and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. What that means for swimming and the delivery of swimming and water safety components is that it doesn't need every, I'm talking particularly at a secondary setting. The primary setting is underpinned by a Victorian water safety certificate. We would expect students to be having a water safety and a swimming and water safety component in their health and PE programs each and every year in F to 6, and that is driven by that Victorian Water Safety Certificate. It's also driven by the funding model, and Alison will talk to that. But at 7 to 10 in the secondary setting, the curriculum only requires students to be assessed when that swimming and water safety component, as per the curriculum I just showed, is actually delivered. And because of the 2-level bands, so 7, 8, 9, 10, it doesn't need students to be in the pool every semester of every year. So it might be that programs construct their curriculum around students having an intensive swimming component that might be in one semester of year 7, then there might be bolstered by some water safety in the second semester or into year 8. But because it's delivered in that 2-level band, in that 7 and 8, that's delivering the curriculum. Teachers can assess that. Now, obviously, in an ideal world, we would love students to have an in-water component in every one of those secondary years. But the curriculum does have that flexibility with the 2-level bands, so it does support schools in that way, particularly those that have some challenges in being able to access water settings. So that's it from me, Jackie. I know that might sort of very quickly touch off a lot of things, but yeah, hopefully it just gives a bit of an overview. But probably the last thing is going back to the first thing. There is no change to the expectation that all students F to 10 need to have an in-water swimming and water safety component, as in addition to those, I guess, water safety elements, which might be more dry land. But we do need to be developing our in-water swimming skills component as per the curriculum.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that. I do have a lot of questions myself, because every time I listen to you, I think, oh, that was something I haven't heard before. If anyone online does have questions, pop them in the chat and we will monitor and get Chris to answer. But Chris, my biggest question is, how might this impact swim schools? That's our audience probably at the moment. So it'd be really good for them to know what might be the biggest impact for them.
That's a really difficult question to answer really specifically from a curriculum perspective. Probably what I would say is that we're working really closely with LSV in terms of updating the material in the toolkit to ensure that the documents reflect the curriculum documents. If I was to answer it in a really simple sense, very little impact from the perspective of what swimming and water safety providers should be delivering in terms of the curriculum. Really, very little change at all. All we've done is really just bring to the surface and make really explicit where swimming and water safety sits in the curriculum, not the content of what should actually be delivered through that. So to give you an idea, our changes to our toolkit are really going to be surface level just with the curriculum documents. We actually think the currency of the material there holds true. So in an ideal world, I would like the impact to be a positive one in terms of having more secondary schools wanting to have access to swim providers. And I know that is a complexity that is not an easy one to maybe manage. But from our perspective, in terms of simply wanting more students at a secondary level actually exposed to an in-water component, I hope it's positive in that sense. But from a change of what should be delivered, very little, none.
Yeah.
None. Yep.
The secondary students was probably where I was heading. I did watch the webinar and noted that there were quite a few people that were saying, has this just been introduced into the secondary? So there wasn't a great awareness through the webinar. I mean, Victoria is very big. I'm sure there's plenty of people that did know. So going back, just if swim schools are getting more inquiries, I suppose, from secondary schools, you're basically saying every second year would be okay, like level. So between 7 and 8, they should, if the secondary school says, what do? We don't know what to do.
Yeah.
What's the recommendation generally?
Yeah. And it's very easy to say, every second year, and that's fine. We know as experts that are in this space that might be the minimum, tick box for the curriculum. So therefore, I think we all need to be really careful in simplifying that message too much in saying, just get them down there for a 4-week swim exposure at the swimming pool in year 7 and year 9, 1 semester only, and we think that that's going to actually have a development of I'm not kidding myself on that. So we really want to also reinforce to our schools that swimming and water safety is more than just an in-water pool component. And I've already had some really fruitful conversations with schools around ways in which they are just going to ensure that their curriculum is mapped to some of their existing programs that they do, whether that be open water, safety components, whether they're engaging with LSV programs from a water safety perspective, or running their own programs that actually look at ways in which they can deliver this knowledge through other contexts. And that can be both lifestyle, physical activities, or even sport contexts. So, some schools are really lucky in being able to actually access some resources where they might be doing something like even water polo or looking through a different lens to be able to deliver some of this context. So, yes, to answer your question really simply, the curriculum only requires that knowledge to be assessed when it's covered within the band. So that does mean that if a school decided that they're going to cover that, for instance, that movement skills, which is really the practical swimming element, they're going to cover it. We'll cover it in 1 semester of year 7, and we're going to report on that. They've met their requirements. So probably the only other thing for a provider, it does allow secondary, because there's not the underpinning Victorian water safety certificate. It probably does, and I might be, excuse the pun, swimming out of my lane here a little bit, but the secondary, for providers working with secondary schools, there's probably a little bit more flexibility there to have those conversations about what their program that they offer in the provider, being able to link up to the curriculum and probably, and we know the strengths and the benefits of the Victorian Water Safety Certificate, but from a practical perspective, taking that overlay off for the secondary probably just creates a little bit more of a practical flexibility that's easier to manage for providers that are dealing with secondary contexts.
Excellent. Thank you. Bianca, I noticed you had your hand up and I think it's gone down. Did you have a question?
You pretty much answered my question. I should have just kept listening, but yeah, I was just reading through the curriculum while you're talking. And I guess, like you're saying, the interpretation of what the school want to implement as the curriculum, that movement is like basic as an example. Refine a range of swim strokes using feedback from teachers, peers, videos. So you could have a school that come in and do a swimming program for year 7s, or the teacher could literally just show an LSV video resource and they've both ticked the box. It's just whatever they can adapt and either pay for, or the availability of swim schools, or yeah, it's their interpretation of the basic band of the curriculum.
Yeah, the only thing with that is if it's the movement, if it's that movement skill sequence, that it's very clearly worded about the actual doing the application. So the video piece might be, and if I interpreted your point correctly, it might be that's where they can look at like feedback. So it might not necessarily be that they're filming themselves. They might be actually in the water doing it, but then they're actually looking at a screen that allows them to refine their movement by looking at a different example. For instance, if you don't have the ability to actually like film somebody's movement, and I can understand that that in itself creates some potential safety issues in terms of just students feeling comfortable about actually filming their own stroke technique or whatever it might be. But yeah, that sequence of the movement skills students do need to be doing. They need to actually be completing the movement aspect of that.
Thank you.
Chris, I had another question about the A to D curriculum. You touched on it. Can you give us a bit more information on what that is? I'm not sure that we speak about it a lot and that everyone online will know what that is.
Yep. So the A to D curriculum, or formerly known as A to D towards foundation. So it's a curriculum. So instead of being, I guess, number levels, it's letter levels. So A, B, C, and D. And it's a progression just like the Victorian curriculum, F to 10 progression, but it's progressing towards foundation. So it's a curriculum that is particularly valuable for specialist school providers. And it is its own curriculum with its own content descriptions and achievement standards. And the point I made before is it's being revised just as the F to 10 curriculum was revised. So the focus at the moment is on English and maths, which correlates with the initial focus in the F to 10 revision was on English and maths. So once that piece progresses, then the other learning areas will be revised, which will include health and PE, and will therefore include the connections that exist in the A to D curriculum for swimming and water safety. And as I flagged, LSV have been particularly proactive in this space, and I know there's a lot of specialist providers that have presented in this forum before that have presented some really great examples and case study examples of what's already been done, and where we as the VCAA are already mindful of that, and I'm when the time comes going to look to engage, and we already have engaged, but we're going to lean into some of this work to look at our swimming and water safety material there, and probably more so the support materials. So the curriculum piece is probably fairly straightforward in terms of looking at, but it's actually looking at what resources we can support schools with, and that connection with LSV as well.
Excellent, thank you. It looks like we don't have any other questions. So, Chris, are you hanging around? Can people, if they think of something?
Yeah, I'll be in the background. Yep.
Perfect. So if anyone has any questions for Chris throughout the webinar, pop them in, and he can either chat back to you online, or we can get him back on later on to talk about things. But we'll say thanks for now, and good to have you on again. Thanks, Chris.
No problems, Jackie.
All right, so we know what's in the curriculum, particularly for schools, what their requirements are and where you can find the information. Liz has popped up a link to the toolkit as well. As Chris said, we are updating resources, but there is so many resources on there that you can jump on and have a look at and utilise. They're all free. They've been developed by LSV, supported by the Department of Education, and yeah, they're for your use. Use them away. There's lots and lots there. Moving on to the Department of Education, I'd like to introduce Alison Porter, who's the statewide swimming coordinator. We've been given the curriculum and where it sits with schools, but Alison's going to come on and tell us all about the new funding model that has just been released in the last month or two. Alison, are you there?
I am, yes. Hello.
Perfect. We'll get you to pop your camera on if you haven't. We can see your smiling face. And
I have turned it
then,
on. Is it?
oh, maybe I can't see you because you're off the screen. Sorry. Let me go forward and make sure we can see you. Oh, I can't. Oh, there you are. You've just come up. Thank you. So, Alison, we'll get you to share your screen and give us an update on the Swimming in Schools funding.
Right. It popped up yet? I'm not sure it has.
Yep.
It has?
All good to go.
Great. Okay. Fabulous. I'll just get my other screen up. I'm dealing with two screens at the moment. They are.
I was thinking earlier how nice it is that we don't have to all jump online early and practice all of our screens and everything because we've been doing it for so long and then my screen didn't work. You're trying to sort out your screens, or it's not as easy as we thought it was going to be. Never is.
Sometimes technology still has one up on us.
Yeah.
So,
especially when we rely on it.
Yeah.
All right, I'll leave you to it. Thanks, Alison.
Great, thanks, Jackie. I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the lands of which we're meeting today. I'm coming to you from the lands of the Bunurong people and acknowledge their care of country for thousands of years, and to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who are on the call with us today. So swimming in schools, yes, we have just delivered a new funding model. So really our aim for, I guess, always and leading into next year is that all students can undertake swimming and water safety activities each year, which is a very broad aim, really. But I guess as an understanding as to what we look after is approximately 1,360 eligible government schools who receive swimming in schools funding, which works out to over 386 students that receive some sort of financial contribution towards their swimming and water safety programs, and over 400 schools and over 111,000 students in the Catholic education sector. And so my role is to provide specialist knowledge on swimming and water safety into schools and to the swimming and water-based guidelines, which are, I guess, the main document that schools and a lot of industry know of now, but how schools can run their program ratios, etc. So the swimming in school programs, the swimming in school funding is specifically there so that schools, and it is only at the moment in primary schools, but it's so that they have additional funds to be able to deliver their program. And we were very fortunate in the May budget that swimming and water safety education received ongoing funding. At the same level, we didn't get an increase, but in our current environment, we were very, very fortunate to actually receive ongoing funding, which provides some fantastic certainty for schools moving forward. So the funding, swimming in schools funding specifically, is its own line item that schools see, and so it can be used for all areas of swimming and water-based activities, which is the instruction, the entry into the pool, and the transport. And so the types of programs that it can be used for are anything from your 5 to 10 day or a term sort of swimming in pool swimming lessons, open water learning programs. And then in addition, we do encourage as many schools as possible, as Chris mentioned too, there should be some classroom-based activities. And we do try and encourage schools to do, I know a lot of programs deliver the theory as well, but we do try and encourage this to be done in classroom more than once, just to try and reinforce those messages. So the new model, currently where the model is based on the number of year 6 students a school has, we have removed that, and it's now based on total number of students. So base rate of $40 per student from prep to 6, and an increase to 48 for any schools who are in the rural school size adjustment area. We have introduced a cap. So there's a base level of funding of $2,000, meaning that for any of those small schools, because we've got some tiny schools that might only have 3 or 4 students, they'll all receive a base level of $2,000, meaning that they can just gives them that bit of extra boost to be able to get to pools, or if they're in a cluster arrangement, they can team up with other schools to help deliver their swimming and water safety programs. For our specialist and English language schools, the funding model hasn't changed, and so they are still receiving the 235 and the 270 for regional areas. So really we've got a variety of different options for school programs, and it's largely dependent on what the school can fit in, what the school has access to, transport, funds available, but it's really very open. Ideally, it'd be great if every single school was delivering an in-water program, and in addition was also able to deliver some sort of open water program. But in reality, what we're really hoping to aim for is that there is some sort of water-based activity. So whether that's a 5 to 10 day swimming program that's in a pool, or whether that's a 2-hour program, say in a pool, lake, river, beach, whether that is 2, 3, or 4 intensive swim lessons back to back, all done on one day. Whether there is swimming lessons or open water learning programs delivered on a camp. So there are a variety of different ways in which schools can deliver these programs, the location in which they can deliver the programs, how they can be delivered, who they can be delivered by, really, and especially moving into next year with this big aim that we just want everybody to have some sort of in-water based experience. Very open to try and, look at creative ways in which we can get schools to deliver this in-water program. So this is, I guess, just an overview of what schools need to go through, and I don't envy teachers at all as to the process they need to go through to be able to deliver especially water-based programs. In particular, there is a 54-step process that's located in this checklist, which is quite extensive, and it also includes all those risk forms and everything that they need to undertake. And then that also, on top of that, there's the negotiation with the pool and the transport to actually get students to and from the pool, what kind of program they're going to run, whether it's going to be a beach program, what it is. So that's sort of on top of what schools do in over above the checklist. And then what we have also what we're doing is currently working with our legal department, as we were made aware that there are some agreements that have DE prohibited clauses in them. And I guess to summarize, some of those clauses basically ask the school to sign an agreement which which asks the school to sign off levels of risk which can't be done by a school. So we're working with the Australian Swim School Association to email out to all of their members, asking them to send to us copies of their agreement so that our legal department can read through them and suggest some change in wording. So we are not looking to change or hand down a standard agreement. It's more about ensuring that there's a smoother transition between school receiving your agreement, being able to sign it off. On a positive note, we've had a couple of centres contact us, some very small swim schools who don't have agreements at all, which leave both themselves and the schools a little bit open, and we're working with them to come up with an agreement so that both the schools and the swim school are protected. Some further assistance that State Schools Relief offer is basically a whole swim kit for any students who require that in order to be able to participate in the program. So there's everything from your standard bathers to, we've also got the Modesty swimsuits available as well, but that also reaches out into goggles, cap, bag and towels. So we do have, it's done largely through principals or their delegates, so that any students that simply don't have, their parents don't have the funds to be able to provide them with the required swimwear. State Schools Relief can give them a whole kit, which is fantastic because it means that those students who are largely our most at risk will still be able to participate in the programs. Child safe standards, they're coming up a lot more, and one area that they're coming up a lot more in the area of swimming is largely change rooms and how to manage that, I guess, that risk of students moving into change rooms, getting changed, moving back out of change rooms after the swim lessons, moving back in, having a shower, getting changed, getting out again. So there are there's a whole PAL guideline around this as listed below. But what we're also trying to encourage, and we're in the moment of updating this information, and it'll be on the guidance tab of the Swimming and Water Safety Education PAL page, is some, I guess, some prompts that schools can use when talking to swim centres. So it's around, does the centre have more than one set of change rooms? If the centre does have more than one set of change rooms, can the school use one, and can that be closed to the public? Are there multiple entry and exit points into all of the change rooms? And if so, letting the teachers know earlier so that they can, I guess, in a way, shuffle students in and out from one door rather than them necessarily, you know, being able to go in one door and out the other, which might take them to another section of the pool. Is there locations where they can all gather together for a briefing before they get into the pool? So there's a number of those sorts of prompts that we've put up on, that will be, sorry, up on PAL shortly, which is encouraging our schools to have a bit more of a conversation with pools when they look to book in, just so that they can, I guess, tick off all of those boxes and make sure that everybody's clear about essentially how the students are going to be managed and kept safe while they're at the pool. And there's just, I guess, a list of the PAL guidelines that I referred to throughout the session, which I'll send my presentation through in PDF so it can be sent out to anyone who's interested. But that's it from me.
Excellent. Thanks, Alison. We have had a question. You spoke about the ASA registered pools being able to send through agreements for review from the legal team. Can any swim school send them through, or is it just the ASA registered programs or pools?
No, it's anyone. We reached out to ASA because they were more than happy to work with us and help deliver that. But no, if there's anybody else who's not associated with ASA, they can send that straight through to me and we can still work with you on that.
Excellent. We might pop your email in the chat for anyone that wants to grab it. So if you've got an agreement and you want someone from the department to have a look, feel free to email it through to Alison and she will get it to the right people and get it back to you. I had another question about the swim kit, which is amazing and would be great to know for swim schools to know that that's available. In general, do principals know about that? I know they know about the state schools relief probably, but do they know specifically about that kit can be purchased for students?
So it is one of the newer items that was introduced into state schools relief. We have made schools aware of it in school updates. But if there's that conversation and there's, more than happy to sort of, I guess, if swim schools want to prompt schools about that, as principals probably aren't aware of absolutely everything. I mean, it's got to the point where state schools relief literally can supply a student with just about everything they need. It's even come down to sort of socks and underwear, especially after there were the floods where some families lost everything. So state schools relief become incredibly resourceful as to what they can offer and able to provide students. But I mean, I guess that Prins have got a lot on their minds. So if it has slipped their minds, they're probably not going to worry too much if centres or teachers remind them that some of their students can obtain these resources.
So if a swim school notices that they've got students coming in inappropriate wear for swimming, they can just touch base with the school teachers who'll go back and can organise that back through the school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good to know. Do we have any other questions online? If anyone wants to pop your questions in. I feel like, Alison, I've asked you a lot of questions over the last couple of weeks about the funding. So I'll leave it there, but I'll get you to stay on camera because you and I worked with the Learn to Swim Steering Committee. I see a few of who are online today, and just talk to them about the challenges for probably more the costings and where money can go for the Swimming in Schools funding. So we did discuss that that funding can cover the cost of buses, but that's a really big cost to schools, the buses across the board, not just with swimming, but across the board with any outside school activities. So we spoke with the Learn to Swim Steering Committee, and we have got some resources or an information sheet with some suggestions on how swim schools can reduce costs. But I thought I'd pull a few up from here. These have just been brainstormed last week, so I haven't got anything official. So this is kind of a first look. So I thought I'd try and get it out there, and then we'll do something a bit more official and pop it on the toolkit at a later date. But some of the suggestions that came up when we were workshopping this with the Learn to Swim Steering Committee were that swim schools can partner with local bus companies. So I'll give a shout out to the team at Southeast Leisure who have actually done this, and this was Talia's suggestion. She said that they've partnered with a bus company to get a discounted rate for all the swim schools that use their buses for lessons. So the swim school reaches out to Southeast Leisure and says, we want to do a program. They then get a referral. I think it's a template that they send back to the school who approach the bus lines and partner with the utilise the bus lines at a discounted rate. And it was quite significant, the discount they were able to get from their bus partner. She also said that they've encouraged schools to work together. So hiring a bus for a whole day is cheaper than hiring it for a morning and then an afternoon. So if you've got schools that are coming in the morning and then a different school coming in the afternoon, at Southeast Leisure, they've got schools working together to hire the bus for the whole day so that they cover the cost and it's actually working out much cheaper for schools. And then there was suggestions to run longer session times, particularly for the older students who can do potentially more than your 30-minute or 45-minute lessons. So you run 2 or 3 lessons back to back. So it would be a 9 till 12 program or whatever, and reducing that back and forth bus cost a lot as well. But I'll get you to move on to the next suggestion. Program-wise, there was suggestions around staff actually going out to the schools to run the dry components. So if you do CPR and water safety knowledge, so the theory piece at the pool, if you go and do those at the school, obviously reduces bus costs because you've got the school not having to come to you, and potentially reduces your staffing costs because your ratios can change when you go to the school and it's a dry program. And then promoting the lessons at the pool for your preps 2s, 4s and 6s, and then promoting in classroom sessions for 1, 3s and 5s. So we know that there's been a preference to the younger years. If you're trying to get a bit more of a stretch across all the years, still offer something to the schools, but offer potentially going to them rather than getting every single year level to come to you, was one of the suggestions. And the final lot of suggestions was based on school carnivals. So Bri, I'll get you to move to that one. So there was a suggestion of with the students that are already at the pool for school swimming carnivals, and there's a really limited number that participate in the actual competitive races, get the other students involved on the day by running some water safety activities. So then you don't have any bus costs because they're already at the pool. And hopefully you've already got your staff at the pool that could just run some activities. And yeah, provide a 2-for-1, I suppose. They get their carnival and they get some water safety activities on the day. So that was just a few things that I pulled from our workshop that we had, and wanted to cover off the buses expenses as well. Alison, did you have anything you wanted to add from that we workshopped last week that I've missed?
Not that I can remember, but I guess I really like the school carnival one because, I was on that table when they're discussing that, and it was, what do you do with, I guess, 80 to 90% of the students that aren't swimming that are supposed to be cheering, that are a bit bored after about the first half an hour to an hour. So, and generally they're your non-swimmers. So, as you mentioned, it's a bit of a 2-for-1 deal that you can leave those swimmers swimming and you can get the non-swimmers potentially learning some water safety activities.
Bianca's just popped in the chat. I don't know if you saw it, Alison, saying schools have already responded positively, I'm guessing, to the new funding model, with many expressing interest in expanding to additional year levels under the new funding model for 2025. So I think the change, one of the reasons for the change, Alison, was that the grade 6s were funded previously, and it kind of got into people's heads that the funding had to be used just based on grades, just for the grade 6s, rather than the funding was based on the number of grade 6s, but could be used across the school. So I know it was really intentional to spread that funding across all the grades.
There was a lot of time spent talking to teachers, and even though it is outlined on in PAL that it says that it's to be used across all levels, that the funding based on year 6s was very much cemented in some schools, that it was just for year 6s. So that was one of the reasons why we went, well, let's just look at scrapping that sort of mindset and changing it, which it looks like it's working well, which is great.
It's really good feedback. Thanks, B. All right, Alison, you hanging around with us for a little while?
I am, yes.
Perfect. So if anyone's got any questions for Alison, pop them in the chat, and Liz has been sharing links, and I think nearly covered off everything that was in your last slide, but we will send those out as well with a follow-up email for anyone that missed it. Alison, if you want to pop your email, don't think that made the chat, if you want to pop that in there for anyone that wants to get someone to look over their agreement, that would be great as well. And we will move on, please, Bree. Excellent. I can see Mark's on my screen ready to go. I would want to introduce Mark Belitho. Many of you will know Mark. He's come from the pool, and he's jumped ship over to the beach programs here at LSV. But he, at the moment, is up to his elbows in our online water safety game called Swim City. Mark, I will hand you over. I would really get everyone to look at the links that hopefully we can pop in the chat for this game, because if we're looking for how we can support schools and probably a pretty good retention piece, Mark's about to give you a little gold nugget that you can use for free and keep those students who potentially aren't getting to the pool engaged. I'll hand over to you. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Jackie. Hey, everyone online. Yes, as Jackie alluded to, we've got some exciting news coming for Swim City, which I'll touch on at the end. But if you haven't heard of Swim City before, I know a lot of you would have. It's been around a couple years now, but Swim City is an online water safety game that we at Lifesaving Victoria developed in partnership with the Department of Education. It's gone through a couple different versions, and over the last couple of years, it started off as a very simple online game, but we've recently added a whole bunch of new locations and characters that are all designed to teach kids about water safety at the home, at aquatic centres, beaches, and inland waterways, and excitingly more to come. Before I get to that news, I just wanted to touch on the implementation of Swim City. It is a tool that kids can play at home in their own time, but it's also absolutely something that can be built into a school swimming program and a school's swimming curriculum. And we've got a bunch of resources on the toolkit because we've already done all of that work for you. So if you haven't played Swim City before, 100% jump on and give it a play first so you know what you're dealing with. It's a lot of good fun. But as well as having Swim City on the toolkit, we've also got a whole bunch of Swim City resources that are developed to help implement the their game into your swimming lesson program, and then also provide it as a valuable resource for your schools that might be visiting the pool to take away and do before or after the game. So you can see on my screen there, we've got things like as simple and basic as a colouring sheet, right through to a document that shows you how to build Swim City into your curriculum. So this is the example of one of the resources we have that gives you a bit of a flow chart about how Swim City can be used in this instance before swimming lessons, to give the students a bit of an understanding about the water safety knowledge component of their swimming and water safety education. And this is crucial for them to know before they do their swimming lessons, and it's obviously a component of the Victorian Water Safety Certificate. So by using something like Swim City, you're able to maximise the time that the kids spend in the pool, so you can focus on your swimming and your water safety skills, and you can tick off the knowledge components of the VWSC in the classroom before, after your program. And I know a lot of pools also use it as a resource for kids to play on pool deck if they ever forget their bathers. So we're making sure that those kids aren't missing out on their journey. But on to the exciting news. We are very excited to announce that brand new for this summer, we are launching a brand new farm location. So you can see up there, Pod and Splashy are visiting the farm, and we're also introducing our brand new character, whose name is Gabby. So Gabby the Yabby is going to take our students through 3 levels at the farm, and Gabby is going to teach them how to stay safe in and around waterways on the farm. So this can include things like dams, irrigation channels and water tanks. And we've developed this again in partnership with Department of Education, but also with Kids Safe, who have been helping out with making sure that all of our water safety messaging is in line with other safety messaging at the farm as well. So we're very excited to be launching that this summer. Keep your eyes out. You can still play Swim City, but over the next couple of months, the new farm module and Gabby the Yabby are also going to be put up as live. So we're really excited to introduce Gabby to everyone. That's all I had on Swim City. If you have any questions or you want to know more about implementing it into your program, feel free to reach us out to the team at Lifesaving Victoria.
Mark, before you go, I know often when we talk about Swim City, there's some questions around what can it be played on? So can it be played on an iPad, a laptop? Like what does a student need to play Swim City?
Yeah, it can be played on laptop, phone, iPad. It's not an app that you download. It is on the website. So it is quite easy to pretty much, we've designed it to be played on anything that has a screen pretty much. So yeah, it can be played on anything that your students might have.
And what ages is this targeted towards?
We've targeted it towards primary school students. So the easy, medium and hard levels sort of break up those primary ages. But it is also developed to be played all through. So it's developed to be played, you start with easy, work your way to medium and then start with the hard. So, you know, the grade 6 students, we still encourage them to play through all 3 levels so they get the foundational water safety skills, but it is developed for all primary school ages to play.
And I know when we were testing the modules originally, and probably for the next couple of years since, we actually took it out to schools. Our staff have actually been in schools working with students in schools to make sure that we were on the right track with it. Bit of a brag moment for you. What's feedback been about it? Like what are students liking about it, and how can swim schools sell it to the students so that they're sending the right message to the students?
Yeah, I think it's twofold on that. We've got the times that we've gone out to schools to, we've done a bit of evaluation to test the effectiveness of Swim City, and we've got 2 bits of feedback. One is from the teachers. The teachers are finding it as a really valuable tool, and it's a really flexible tool. So it can be played at any time during school. So some teachers create entire lessons around the different modules. some teachers will have as a resource that they can play as a time filler or at wet lunch times, or often kids will just pull it up themselves and play it at school or at home. So that's been some really good feedback from teachers. And then from our students, I think the number one feedback is that it's just making water safety learning fun. They're actively engaged. When you walk into a room of kids playing it, it's just complete silence and everyone's just fully engaged in the Swim City modules. So I think for the students, it's making their journey really fun, which is a good thing, because I know that when I was coming up as a young swim teacher, it can get quite dry when we're talking about water safety. So we've tried to make it as fun as possible during this game. So that's probably the number one bit of feedback we've got from our students.
Perfect. And can it be used, does it have to be used just with schools? Are we aiming it at anyone, or just really targeted to schools?
Absolutely anyone. It's available to anyone to play. So families, friends, it's open to them to all to play. We've been looking at the stats, and even some kids from outside Australia are even playing it. So absolutely anyone. But it is targeted. We have built it for schools and swim schools, but anyone can play.
And lastly, what sort of resources? You said there are extra resources. What's an example of some of the extra resources that we've got?
I'll jump back to our resources page. So you can see up on there, the one I clicked on is the curriculum one, but we've also got stuff like newsletter content. So coming up to December, and a lot of swim schools doing stuff around water safety, but we've got newsletter content that you can just copy and paste into any newsletters or social media posts you might have. We've got Swim City social tiles. We've got activity sheets that you can send out to your schools. So it's really stuff to help promote and work alongside Swim City. So it's a really good one to be promoting, especially if you want all of your students to be learning outside of swimming lessons and come to their lessons with that base water safety knowledge.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark. And you will be seeing the Swim City characters around a bit more during Water Safety Week. We have been developing some resources for swim schools to utilise specifically for Water Safety Week coming up in December. There will be some more information about that coming out in the next few weeks, but keep an eye out for those familiar faces. Not sure if we got Gabby into the new resources, but she will definitely be making an appearance on resources down the line.
Gabby, colouring sheets are on the way, I can confirm.
Oh, they are. There you go. Excellent. So get your brown pencils out, and I think we're going with fluoro yellow. I know she doesn't look so fluoro here, but find your fluoro yellow highlighter, because you'll need that to colour it in. Excellent. Thanks, Mark. Marie, we will get to move you on. Thank you very much. Mark will be hanging around to answer any questions in the chat also. And Liz has shared the links for Swim City. So give yourself half an hour off this afternoon after you finish the webinar, jump on and have a bit of a play and enjoy. Sophie, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Perfect. Hi. I would like to introduce everyone to Sophie Rowland, who is the WinSwim coordinator at Wynactive. Sophie and the team at Wynactive have recently developed, actually not recently developed, but recently launched a new program. It's a bit of an out-of-the-box program to what you would normally do as a swim school. So we thought we would get Sophie to have a chat with us today about the program and share, I guess, details of it and the why. Why did they come up with this program, and just get everyone to think about what your area needs, what your council needs, and what programming can you come up with. So Sophie, can I get you, sorry, let me check if I've got you on camera somewhere else. Yes, I have. Thanks for joining us today. I know you've got some of your team online as well.
Yes.
I might get the, Bree, can you just stop sharing for me so that we can get Sophie up on the screen? And Sophie, I might get you to give us a really quick overview of your new program. Tell us what it's called and a little bit about it.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me to speak. We're all very excited about this program here at Wynactive. So our new program is called Pathways, and the whole idea of it is that students with additional needs are dynamic and they change, and not every student who has additional needs that one-on-one class. So we have developed a program called Pathways, which is all about getting students where they are now and progressing them until they are able to join our mainstream class. So we recognise that currently our previous program just wasn't providing enough support for the student, but also not enough of a relationship with the families and the carers. So we have really developed this program and tried to have a bit more of a multidisciplinary working together with other health professionals with those students. So their OTs and speech therapists, and really working with the family to develop swim lessons that are in line with what they're learning in other areas as well. So it looks at, we start off by assessing our students and seeing what stage they're at the moment, and it is a progression of a 1-to-1 class, a 1-to-2 class, a 1-to-3, and then having the student in the mainstream class just with an additional teacher for support until that student is feeling ready to be by themselves in the mainstream classes.
Sounds awesome. There's a couple of things that you did take into consideration when you were looking at developing it. One of them, and I'm not sure, initially before you launched, I was we were talking to you about your program, and you were saying that potentially you'll be running it during school hours. Is that something that you're still looking at doing?
Yes, so we have launched it through our program we already had on weekday evenings, but we have also launched this new program during the day as well, recognising that a lot of students with additional needs, they have got carers that are able to bring them during the day. And for a lot of students, that might be a better environment where it is a little bit quieter. There's not as many people in the centre, so they are able to focus a little bit better. So we are running these lessons both during the school day and after school as well.
So you're running during the school day for school age students as well?
Yeah, for school age students, for adults, anyone who is in our Pathways program, we have either the daytime or the nighttime available. Yeah.
So what does that look like for the school age students to come during the day? I know you worked fairly closely with parents when you were developing the program. What's their feedback on coming during the day?
Yeah, a lot of them have alternative schools. So a couple of our students only go to school maybe 3 days a week, and they find it's better to keep the student in that routine of getting up at, say, 8 a.m. and then they're going to swimming, or they're getting up and they're going to school. So it's definitely those students who are potentially not going to school 5 days a week, or they come and they do it before they go to school, or it's part of their routine now. And we've had some feedback from the parents that they're really enjoying the quieter facility during the day.
So when did you officially launch, Sophie?
We officially launched the start of the term, so it has only been maybe 3 weeks now, but everyone has been really enjoying it. There's a lot of additional things that we've added to this program. So in the past, it was essentially everyone was a one-on-one. We now have developed that assessment, and the assessment takes place in the warm water pool, and it's the child with a teacher, and then either a coordinator or a swim school leader is out on pool deck with the parent, really building that rapport, really learning about that student, what sort of supports they have, and what we can be implementing in their swim lessons to really help them. The other thing is a lot of us have online onboarding and enrolment forms, whereas for our Pathways program, we've taken that offline and we've put it as another touch point for them to really connect with the facility. So they're coming into us and we have a enrollment form that really has what the student likes, what the student doesn't like. It can be something as simple as the student loves Thomas the Tank Engine toys, and we can really use that to motivate those students. And it just means that our teachers have a little bit more information about what they're using at home or at school that we can then use in the swim school to help them with their lessons. So something that we've implemented for one of our students is storyboards, and we have a picture of the splash park, and on days that she comes when she has lessons, it says that the splash park is not available. However, on days that she comes with her family, we have a picture that says splash park available today. And having those storyboards that those students can look at the night before gets them ready and prepared for their lessons the next day.
Have you targeted students that were already in the program?
Yeah, so anyone who was already in our Access and Inclusion program has been moved on to this Pathways program, and we are getting that additional information to help them. We do also have a couple of students in our mainstream program that now that we have launched this, there's a bit more information about what the program is, that we've had students transition from mainstream into the Pathways program, whether that be a 1-on-2 or a 1-on-3. That's just a little bit better suited for that student at the moment instead of the mainstream 5-to-1 classes.
And what's the feedback been from parents who maybe had a 1-to-1 class and maybe don't have a 1-on-1 class anymore? It's a nice visual for parents to see their child 1-on-1. And I know that personally having discussions with parents going from a 1-on-1 to more than that can be challenging. How did you go? How did you navigate that piece?
Yeah, definitely. It can be challenging. I think the thing that we really emphasized is that swim lessons are not only about learn to swim, it's about that social aspect as well. So really having two students together, it can help with competition a little bit, with really pushing each other. And then also just that social aspect of them being able to have a class with another student, bond with that student, and learn from each other, I think is what we try and sell the 1-to-2 classes. And with the pathways, the goal is always to get them to that mainstream, and that is something that we advertise, is that we are trying to progress them, and the goal is to get them into those mainstream classes. So when they're going to a 1-on-2, it's a step in the direction that we're aiming.
I didn't prep you for this one, so
no, that's
take
okay.
it on notice. But challenges, what have you found your biggest challenges have been?
I would say one of the challenges that we have found is I would say with the daytime, we have definitely found some that are very keen to do the daytime, and then there's some that we still do have a waiting list of some people that we are trying to get into the program. I think the other challenge, it's been really easy to start the new program for the new students. It's more so now getting those students who are already in our program to transition into this fresh program.
And your biggest wins? Why should other people do something like this?
The families have really enjoyed it. So with having that one-on-one assessment, they've really been able to build that rapport with the family. So I was in the water doing a lot of the assessments, which meant that I really got to know the families. We have little starter packs that we've been handing out to them as well. And the parents just feel supported through this process. And it really does emphasize that we are trying to help those children progress through different levels instead of just having that one-on-one where it kind of feels like there's no progression or endpoint. Having the transitioning of programs, I think, has been really well received by the participants of the program.
So you've got a very supportive leader in this space in Matt.
Yes.
And I'm sure that made the whole process
definitely
a lot easier, and you can see the outcomes because Matt clearly is very passionate. How can other swim schools pick this up, or why should they potentially pick it up and do something similar without that real driver on board? I know that not everyone has a mat in their facility to be able to drive something like this.
Mm-hmm.
You told us the benefits, but why should other swim schools do this, or even look at just different programming for their community in general?
We've been very lucky to also have support from a new position at our company, participation coordinator, so community and participation, who has also definitely helped us a lot. I think the why is that it means that the students are able to progress faster. They're able to get that social connection. So by implementing, say if a student really uses the visual cue cards at home, we can create an environment that they already know and that they're comfortable with. So it's helping the students feel comfortable faster and to be able to progress through the lessons. And it's giving support to those parents, because we do understand that as a parent or a supporter of someone with additional needs, it can be quite tricky at times. So providing that extra support for them and the extra education for them as well, I think is really important to help them develop the skills in their child or the person that they're caring for.
Very good. Thanks so much for sharing with us today.
No
are you happy for people to reach out to you if they've
definitely
got questions? Definitely, if there's any questions at the moment, pop them in the chat and we'll get Sophie to answer. But Sophie's at Wynactive. I'm not sure if you work across all the facilities, but definitely at at Aquapulse in Werribee. So if anyone has any questions, Sophie and Matt both are more than happy to talk this program all day long. And hopefully in 12 months' time we can have a chat to you and hear about how successful it's been and hear some real good case studies on why people should be doing this in their swim centres.
Yes, that sounds great.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I can't see questions coming through in the chat, so I will just double check with Liz that I haven't missed anything. Or not?
No, you haven't missed anything, Jackie.
Sorry, are you all in the room together? Thanks, Mark. We will, unless anyone's got any more questions, I don't think I've got any more slides there. Bree, are we done with those? All good?
Yeah.
All right, excellent. We will finish up there. I do want to let everybody know that there is another webinar coming up in November. We launch our drowning report in December, but we will be having a pre-launch webinar specifically targeted to swim schools in November. So jump on to our website and enroll for that. We have got quite a few people enrolled already. It's a pretty popular one. Our manager for research will be leading that one and targeting what swim schools can be what messaging swim schools can be utilising for Water Safety Week. We will also next month be sending out a suite of resources for Water Safety Week. So if you're not already on our emails, if you're not getting our newsletters, make sure you sign up to get them because we're doing all the hard work for you. We're putting some plans together. So definitely make sure you're receiving our newsletters and keep an eye out for that. Thanks to everyone that's joined today. Thanks to our speakers. We will send up a follow-up email with everyone with contact details and the links that we've shared today. So that will be coming out. I think that's about everything. Thanks, team who helped me out with the presentation. And we'll see you at the next one. Thanks all.
Thanks, Jackie. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Chris.